Hello and welcome to the Geek Inn, a weekly podcast with me, Elliott, Kyle and Pickers, where we discuss movies, TV shows, and anything else that we enjoy. Why not grab yourself a pint and join us at the table?
Shall we just talk about the big one, which is going to be the Snyder Cut? Just how, obviously, in the last 18 months or 2 years that there's been this campaign to release the Snyder Cut after Zack Snyder's been releasing snippets of what his original version was going to be before he left the project or got forced out. We don't really know. And then Josh Whedon took over. And then also the calls for other cuts of films to be released. For instance, the Ayer cut for the Suicide Squad before the studios got involved and told him to sort of change the film. There's calls for that, because apparently there's a version of that out there, as well as other films as well. And when does it sort of drop? Like, for instance, if Marvel releases Black Widow and fans hate it, but then they find out there's another version out there, another script, when does it get to the point where it's like they're just essentially just building one film to release to the main audience and then gonna just release another film just to appease the fans?
What do you think, both of you, about the Snyder Cut? Do you think it needs to be made? Do you think it's necessary?
I wouldn't say it was necessary.
No, I'm excited for it, but I'm not. I don't think it needs to be made. It's just one that is purely just catering for fans. I think it might be doing it just to silence a lot of people, because I know there's a lot of noise around the whole Snyder Cut, from all the cast.
But do you think it's... Sorry, go on, Pickers. I'll let you finish.
You've got to think, like, there's always historical cases where, like, something good's happening and something that everybody's looking forward to, and then obviously something tragic like what happened with the Snyder Cut, where you were directing the first film, happens and kind of gets in the way of that, and then you kind of just do with what you get. And then this kind of seems like, I mean, it could just be like my own madness kicking in, but it just kind of seems like kids not getting what they wanted, so they're kicking off until they get what they want, kind of thing.
Exactly what's happened, to be honest. That these fans have just come out and they've had this campaign, and they've been campaigning it for like the last 2 years until something's actually, they've created enough noise where they've just thought, enough's enough, we're just going to give in to it. But it's not just the fans doing it as well. You've had a director that's been pushing it, as well as the cast members. But then a similar thing sort of happening at the minute as well with David Ayer's Snyder Suicide Cut, where he's sort of saying, "Oh, there's a version of my movie out there which is completely different to the one that got released," and he's trying to push towards it. So, I mean, eventually, could that get to a point where say 2 years down the line we've got a Suicide Squad film being made?
See,
we're not
really excited for the Suicide Squad. When Suicide Squad, like Jared Leto's take on Joker, am I the only one that got excited for that, or really fresh? It was like something that I'd not seen before.
I was excited.
Really excited.
Being cast because of all the stuff he'd done before.
And then when he got cut from it, yeah, I were a bit gutted, but I'm going to stomp my feet and complain and no,
it's just that
sort of accept what I got.
They did. You just don't. You hear rumours about how much they sort of changed his character, and he was meant to be like the major villain in that film. But the bits I did see of Jared Leto's Joker, I didn't like.
See, I don't know whether I enjoyed it.
I liked it, but I just thought he was more like a jealous boyfriend type thing, very clingy. And I didn't like that as the Joker character.
I don't know. I thought there was something there. I thought that could have been explored.
There were bits where you could think, oh, maybe it could be just like the usual Joker, where he doesn't really care about Harley.
That's not what I wanted. I didn't want the usual Joker. Like, what we're excited about him is it looked different, it felt different, and yeah, it still had the same kind of feel to him. It crazy, but it felt modern. If you get me.
His portrayal, though, one of the weaker parts of the Suicide Squad, when people were reviewing it and talking about it, the way his Joker were being portrayed.
See, I don't know if I agree that his portrayal was one of the weaker parts, or the fact that he didn't get to see much of it was one of the weaker parts.
Well, this is what they're saying with the Ayer cut, aren't they? That there's a lot more footage of his character, but he's also apparently he's coming back for the Snyder Cut, so he's going to be in Justice League. So he's going to have a chance to sort of show off his version of the Joker in that film. which is, and that's another thing as well with the Snyder Cut. Like I said, there's bits where I'm looking forward to, but then there's other bits where I'm just thinking it's Zack Snyder just going full on.
But it's,
Like,
it's
he's
purely
made
for the fans because it's 4 hours long. This isn't anything that anyone, from a general populace perspective, is going to want to watch.
Warner Brothers are going to be getting something out of it, because the thing is, it's going on HBO Max. They're not releasing it out in the cinemas, but it's be going on HBO Max, and they're giving it an extra 70 million. So they're not just going to spend. Oh, I mean, are they? That this is the whole topic, really.
Well,
It's a
that's
studio
my
where
argument on whether or not. So, like, this is where my argument kind of. This is where I kind of fall out of love with it. So, like, I love director's cuts, and to be fair, commentary on films and stuff, but they were always like extras that you got on a Blu-ray. They want something that you were looking forward to this much. It wants some of that needed reshoots and things like that.
But when you look at
Obviously,
Blade
there's extenuating circumstances in this case
Well,
because he wasn't able to finish the film himself. But he's had 70 million.
Runner,
Like, how much what budget for the? How much what budget to film it in the first place? Like 150 to 200.
I think it was about 250 million for the whole thing. Although I know it got that was because Josh Whedon came on as well, and he sort of changed around quite a lot. But the thing is, Zack Snyder's come out and said that you got to see 30% of his movie in the Justice League film, and it is. I think we all are in agreement that the Justice League it's not a great film. It's average as a superhero one.
But do you think it's a studio that's trying to mask the fact that they made a film that was average by saying, "Hey, look, we've got a recast. We can reshoot a better version."
No, if anything, this brings attention to it even more. The fact that we realised the film wasn't great. We've made mistakes making it, bringing on a director that wasn't right for the project. So we're going to give this director another 70 million to release his version of the film. So if anything, it highlights it more. I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, I love DC films and things like that, and I just don't know if I want films just made to appease the fans. Even though I'm going back to Star Wars, but the sequel trilogy, I'm not a huge fan of the sequel trilogy. I don't know if I'd want somebody to go back and rewrite them all over again. Just say, oh, what, we're going to rewrite Last Jedi, we're going to rewrite Rise of Skywalker and release them again.
Well, no, because we came from a generation, you get what you're given. Like, how many times did you ask what were for tea? And what did you get told? You get what you get. Shoot with sugar on.
But with this, does it not set a precedent where it's like, oh, it's happened once, so all you have to do is start making some noise and go about this, and then directors can jump on board with it as well and think, what, I didn't really get the film that I wanted to release, so I'm going to pressure the studio to then give him some money, release it again.
That's why I don't really agree with this. And I don't think it's. So, what his first cut going to be 4 hours? What extra has he put in film?
He was going to do it in two. He was going to do it in two parts, wasn't it? So
in these past 2 years, has he come up with extra stuff, and is he just shoving it in there and saying that we're part of his original ideas and things like that?
There's bits in it which are from the original things that. So like the Flash were going to be in it quite a bit. It was going to be more prominent around Cyborg as well. He's going to be quite a main character, and there's a few other little bits and bobs. He was going to have obviously Darkseid in it, but all this other stuff that's been thrown in, all this with Deathstroke and Joker coming, and all these other DC characters, none of that were meant to be in it. But it's just, oh yeah, these characters are going to be in it now. So I think he's taking opportunity to just think, I'm just going to throw everything in. And make
That's what it seems like to me. It seems like he's playing on it. It's seen a lot of attention. It's seen his Twitter account go through the roof, that kind of thing, and he's jumping on bandwagon. He's getting his money's worth, kind of. You know what I mean? It for me, it doesn't seem like a director's cut. This is a redo.
Well, it's a brand new film, but it's also a fan-made brand new film as well. Well, Elliott, what do you think of this? Because I think me and Pickers are sort of in the same boat where we don't really. I mean, like I say, I'll watch it because it's coming out, and I'm excited for it that particular way because it's going to be something different. But I don't want it to this become a regular thing where studios are going to have to be scared of what films they release just in case 2 years down the line they're going to have to be forking out another 100 million to make a brand new film.
And this is going on HBO Max.
It's going on HBO Max, yeah.
Yeah, I can only assume that this is for HBO Max because nobody's coming back for a Justice League 2 movie. So it's not a jumping off point to do other films or to sort of resurrect a brand, is it? This is just a one-off cut of a film that fans want. So it's probably more to sell HBO Max than it is to get people to watch Justice League.
Warner Brothers have come out and said that they're not. It's just going to be a one-off. It's not going to spawn anything else. But then they've also come out and said that there's a possibility that Ben Affleck could be coming back and doing a trilogy of Batman films, which is what the original plan was going to be after Justice League got released. Ben Affleck were going to write and direct them, star and directed them, and then all these other DC projects were going to jump from them. But if you think since 2016, what's happened with DC films is they've actually got better. So you've had Wonder Woman. Personally, I don't think it's as great as everybody made out, but for everything, like where you got the female-led director and it was like sort of female star, and it did do quite a lot in the same way with Black Panther. But it was like Wonder Woman he had come out since then. Shazam, which is not a great film, but it's quite comical and fun.
I enjoyed Shazam. Yeah, it's an easy watch.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's not an award winner. It's not up there as like one of the best DC films of all time. It's not anywhere close to what you'd be thinking. Like, oh, it's superhero film that is up there near Dark Knight. But it's a fun film.
No.
And it's nowhere like near bottom or all worst superhero films. And then you've got Aquaman as well, which is visually really good, and that's a fun film. Again, story-wise, bit like Shazam, but it's fun. So they've had successes, they've had hits since 2016. So as much as they're saying they're not going to use it to do anything else on the back of it, this is just going to be a one-off thing. Do we not think that they could be doing something like that?
You think they're edging their bets whether or not they can, if this goes really well, we can bring back the brand if it goes badly?
They're sitting on the fence at the minute. They're saying, "Oh, we're not. It's just going to be a one-off thing, so don't get excited about it." But if there's enough noise about it, then they might be starting to think, oh, "Okay, well maybe we'll."
To be fair, this could be their way. So what have we all been complaining about for the past couple of years is that everything seems to be either a remake or like a sequel to a film that was done 40 years ago. No, it's original, no, it's new anymore. They can't come up with any new ideas. Maybe this is their new way of going down that kind of route.
Maybe the studios get involved with it because it's going to be like that episode of My Fairly Parents where they get that thing where it's just constantly redoing things. I don't want that to be a precedent where it's going to be remakes and sequels. But the new big thing now is just going to be redos of films that have not been successful. Like,
it's a good thing. Like, if this makes a lot of ground, makes a lot of views, makes a bit of money for them, then the Suicide one, why would that not go ahead?
But
as a business decision.
A couple of weeks ago on a different podcast episode, you said you didn't like Warner Brothers' Dark Universe series because you could telegraph that they were trying to make something before they'd even started. Does it not sound with all including Suicide Squad and just everything in Justice League, they're sort of hoping in the same way that they can sort of roll everything?
Well,
we're Universal, but I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying that I'd enjoy it if it went down that route. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm just saying, could it be that maybe this is a new point of revenue for them on top of remakes, on top of, can we add redos?
But when does it get like?
It won't be a good thing for me.
Well, when does it get to a point where it just gets stupid? So literally, they can bring out a film which is like, oh well, we'll try this one. If not, we'll just redo it again and release it again.
I don't think there'll ever be a point where you see a Fast and Furious 7 director's cut. I don't think you'll ever get to that point.
With Justice League, that was meant to be a bankable film for him. It was meant to be a big thing. Like, for instance...
But that brings up a separate topic for me. Like, when did every comic book film have to become like an Oscar-worthy, amazing piece of art? Like that. To be fair, that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed Shazam so much. because it was just fun. It was just light. It didn't take itself too serious, if you get me.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Completely get what you mean.
Every comic book film, people talk about them like they should be groundbreaking these days.
But I think there are certain films which you do expect to do well, and that's what there are a lot of expectation for Justice League to do well as a film, just in the same way that Avengers have spoiled it, because people want every film to be like that, because they want them to be making over $1 billion at box office, but also be hits as well. Rewatchable films that people just go back and watch over and over again, but be quite big ones. I think there's certain, like Bond, for instance, with Sony. That's a sort of film series which is keeping our studio going. And if they have a miss like they did with Spectre, I mean, it made plenty of money for them, but let's just say the next one.
I enjoyed Spectre.
All right.
I know my dad did as well.
Shall we talk about something else? Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, my dad enjoys Spectre. My dad's been a Bond fan for a lot longer than what we have.
Do you not find it quite funny though that it snicked its idea from Austin Powers Goldmember with being half brothers?
Well, did it have bits wrong with it? Did it? Well, it not great, yeah, but it was what it was. It's a spy thriller action film.
The thing that annoys me about
does it have to be like Skyfall? You know what I mean? Does it have to be?
But don't do it while you're ruining the other films, though, because the thing is that what they made it about in Spectre is that he was controlling all these other villains, like Le Chiffre from Casino Royale, and I know it's not a great film, but Green from Quantum of Solace, and then Sylvia, which has got nothing to do with Spectre or that other organization, but he was actually being controlled by Spectre, so it was Blofeld.
Yeah, that's just because they're trying to tie them all in together, aren't they? So they've got a Daniel Craig series,
and that for me is what's annoyed me about Spectre. Not the whole half brother thing. I didn't really mind it. It was just that where they thought, all right, well, we'll tie everything in.
So would you prefer a director's cut of Spectre that fixed these things?
Well, this is the thing: is I don't want it because it's already there. It's a film that's been made, and I quite enjoy talking about the negative aspects of it as well as the positive bits. So I'm not. The Snyder Cut's happening. You know, there's no way around it. But I'm not one of them that's been campaigning for it to be made. I quite like knowing there's other cuts of films. Like Rise of Skywalker, there's an alternative script by Colin Trevor, the original director, which have been completely different. But do I want him to make that film? No, because we've got what we've got.
Yeah, you get what you get.
I don't like the idea of going back and rewriting films just because it's not worked. If it doesn't work from the start, then it's not worked.
Can you think of a director's cut that has worked in your opinion? Just pick us.
Not really. Blade Runner.
Most director's cuts aren't that much different. Yeah, it's very small changes. It's most
additional scenes. It's like Lord of the Rings extended edition. You don't need to watch the extended edition, but it's got little bits in there that sort of enhance the story and give it a little bit more to it.
Don't completely change the film like what it sounds like Suicide Squad's going to do.
With a director's cut, it's minor changes. It's like Blade Runner. It doesn't change the plot of the film. All it does is you've got the original version, which is where it's got all the narration, and then you've got the director's cut, which cuts all that out, and it's got a few other bits in as well, little scenes that they don't change the plot. Like Picker said, they're not changing the entire film.
But they build the world and the characters.
Yeah, they'll add bits to it. It's the reason why like a director's cut or an extended edition is there is for people that actually really enjoy the film to delve in a bit more, to get a bit more depth, that kind of thing. Not to change massive amounts of the story or massive amounts of the film and just redo it, rewrite it. This didn't work, let's do this instead. For me, the Snyder's cut shouldn't be happening. It is happening, and I'll watch it, but it shouldn't be. I hope it doesn't happen in future.
It is a complete rewrite to the film. I mean, the only one I can see at the minute which might be sort of on the same boat, which is Sergio Leone's Ultimate Edition, Once Upon a Time in America, where they're on about releasing it, where it's got over. I think the film was going to be like 5 hours long because it's already about 3.5 hours long anyway.
I would say that's a ridiculously long film to begin with.
But there's like an Ultimate Edition out there where Sergio Leone had cut all these bits, but then they were going to add it together. But I don't think it's going to completely change around the whole plot of the film. It's just going to be little bits.
Just add more depth. You know what I mean? For people that really love the film, they'll be able to delve into it more. Not completely change the film.
That one with Orlando Bloom from Ridley Scott. That he brought our director's cut where he put like an extra 45 minutes worth of footage in it. But these are all bits that just got left on cutting room floor that add into it. Don't change around the story, just enhance it slightly.
I can't say I've ever watched. I've watched the film. I've never watched the director's cut.
It's alright. It doesn't really, to be fair, it doesn't really make the film much better.
So the film wasn't that amazing that I've gone looking for an extended or different cuts.
Now, having said all that, if I were given an opportunity to watch that film that without Orlando Bloom in it, I'd probably campaign for that film to be made. Or you could just deep fake it, something else.
It's not that bad.
Can I ask, is there any film that you would like to see a director's cut of? That isn't out already?
Oh, that's quite interesting, actually. Oh, I don't know. There's probably a few.
When you say director's cut, or do you mean like what we're going to get with the Snyder's cut?
Is there a film that you think would be enhanced by having extra scenes? I mean, you'd have to know what those scenes are. So there is a little bit of a making up imaginary scenes. But is there any film that you wish was longer, that had more explanation of the world and explored the world and the characters a bit more?
Probably quite a few when you really break it down with the films.
That's it. There's quite a few films that I've really sat there and enjoyed and thought I could have sat there for longer. Like this didn't seem like 2 hours, or this didn't seem like 2.5 hours.
I need to be looking at the film really to know. Like the only one I'm looking at Logan at the minute. And I'm thinking, you know what, I wouldn't mind a bit more sort of backstory delving into what happened to the X-Men and stuff like that, the other characters.
Well, Logan, they were meant to be doing a sequel to it, weren't they? And then it just completely got shut down and just disappeared. Like the little girl, I completely forget her name. Yeah, the actress from that, she got signed on for 2 films.
I think
she was meant to be.
Well, that's before I think that got sort of scrapped with the whole Fox merged into it with Disney.
Yeah.
Like New Mutants into the final release that and put it out for video on demand.
But yeah, for me it'd be the films that like the films that I sat there in cinema and you know which ones they are because you come out there and you think that didn't feel like 2 hours. It felt, you know what I mean. It felt like it went really fast. It felt like you were interested, you were focused the whole time. There were no points in it where you kind of drifted. They're the films for me that could do with extra scenes or could do with delving into a bit more because obviously I was really enjoying them.
Do you think there's a film? Okay, so my final point before we switch topics. Do you think there's a film that you would like to see rewritten in the same way as the Snyder Cut?
If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said Back to the Future 3. But I actually watched Back to the Future 3 when I watched first, second, and third one on New Year's Day. And the third one, I've got to say that one sitting, that one watching, that completely changed my opinion on it. I don't know what had been wrong with me. I loved it. It was a really good film.
Wow, that were a bold claim from the start. I didn't really know what to
say. Mate, it proper surprised me. Just sit down and watch 1, 2, 3 all over again.
I'm not in the ship that needs to be like thinking it needs to be rewritten. I always liked first. For me, it's always been 1, 3, and then 2.
Really?
Yeah.
It's always been 1, 2, and I hated 3 for some reason. I couldn't tell you why. I just really did not like it. And then I watched it on New Year's Day and I loved it. I've got to say that I really, really enjoyed it. I came away from it just like with a great big smile on my face.
When I was younger, I used to like 2 above 3. but that's because I like the whole futuristic side of it. You know, you've got the hoverboard in it. But having watched it and got the I got the Blu-ray 30th anniversary version a few years ago, and then watched them all back to back. But yeah, for me, it's 1, 3, and 2.
I probably agree with you these days. Yeah, 1, 3, and 2. After watching it just on that one day.
Elliott, have you got a film that you think needs a director's cut, or a film that needs a complete rewrite?
Ooh. I did look. I know that you posted some articles in our group, and one of them that I looked through was the Spider-Man 3 cut, and I didn't particularly want to see a remake of Spider-Man 3, but having looked through some of the things that were in the original version of it, I would be interested to see if somebody could save that film. If you could reshoot it,
that film for me, I would agree with you, because that film for me, it just had too much crammed into it. It would just, I think it would just sloppy writing from the start. I tried, they bit off a bit more than what they could chew. I think a bit better writing and a bit rewriting and changing things. That film could be pretty decent, because it's got my favourite Spider-Man in. So yeah, I probably agree with you on that one, Elliot.
Do you not think there's an opportunity for Marvel to do this, because they're releasing that What If TV show, you know, with all the different universes? Or they could essentially they could put it onto like an animated type TV show type thing. So DC could do the same thing. Star Wars could do it, really, where they just bring out animated cuts, like what if this was done this way, or what if, you know, this was done, you know, with this director. You know, would you be up for seeing that and watching that with all these examples? For instance, like Star Wars and Spider-Man 3 and maybe Fantastic Four in there, you know. Would you want to see that?
Not really, no. For me, the What If is quite exciting, because it's going to be short, little animated TV series. It's not going to be a film or all like that. It's going to be, what if this happened? It's going to be big changes. You know what I mean? It's, for me, the reason why that works is because it's not going to have to keep me attention for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's going to have to keep me attention for half an hour, 45 minutes, and it's going to be big changes. That's why that TV show is quite exciting.
Elliott, would you want something like that, like on an animated? You know, if you got a version of Spider-Man 3, but Sam Raimi bringing it out, but doing like an animated version of it, because there's talks about them. The only reason I mentioned this is, you know, the Superman Lives with Nick Cage, that was going to be released by Tim Burton in the 90s. There's talks that Tim Burton could be doing an animated version of that with Nick Cage voice starring in it.
I think I'd be quite excited to see that, to be fair. I mean, that's not really a remake or a reshoot. That is a film that never got made, that's kind of become a cult legend. As for Spider-Man 3, I would like to see the what ifs. I think that'd be quite interesting.
Oh, interesting. And then if there was demand on the back of that for a live action version, would you still be in the same position, or would you want to be settled?
I guess I just want to see the director's version of what he would want to make. I think that's an interesting concept. I don't necessarily want an actual film. I don't want this to come back and be an actual series again. I don't want the Tobey Maguire films to now be made 20 years later.
Yeah, I like that, because I like the fact that there's an end to it. You know what I mean? Like these days, like what Kyle's just suggested, and then on back of that, and then on back of that, and then on back of that.
Yeah.
There's got to be a finish. There's got to be a, no, we're done, dusted. That was good enough. We enjoyed that. Well done. Or
the whole reason we're talking about this is that there's been that much noise, so then kickstart this with the Snyder Cut. So it's if you do one thing, you know, people are going to then be thinking, oh, I wonder what this is going to be like in this form, and then I wonder what it's going to be like in a live action.
That's not a good thing for me. That's the only reason why I'm not liking the Snyder Cut. Like the Snyder Cut, I would have liked to really add that in the beginning. Obviously, we couldn't. We didn't get that. I'm fine with it. I've got over it. I've moved on. I don't like and then on back of that, and then on back of that, and then what about this, and then what about this kind of thing. It just never ends. You could do it with every film. You could do it with every TV show. You could do it with everything. Does it not get boring?
Well, personally, I'm in the same agreement as you, and that's why I just want the Snyder Cut to be a one-off thing. I don't want it to be this. I like the mystery films, when you hear about all these, the different version, different scripts, because you can imagine what it's going to be like. You don't have to see it. You've got a version there, and in some versions, because the thing is, the only problem with that is some people might really like Justice League, and then they rewrite it, and then it completely ruins the version that they really like.
Exactly. So, you can't please everybody, can you? That's like a known fact. Somebody's going to be disappointed, or somebody's going to be annoyed.
But this is what I don't want to happen: is that studios be scared about releasing films, but then get to a point where fans are kicking off that much, where they've been given too much power. Because that, like you said earlier, it's like a kid, just like constantly nagging into it, saying, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then finally being given it. And then that same kid then just being like, well, I want this, I want this, I want this. I just don't want it to become a bad habit that studios are being scared to release these films, because it'll get to a point where they just don't want to release them at all. Or where fandom takes over too much, where they know how to get around these studios now, create too much noise. I just hope Warner Brothers have got an ulterior motive for doing this, and not just doing something just to appease fans and Zack Snyder.
I don't know, like, for me, this could work as a one-off. I mean, for me, I always go back to, like, it must have been horrible going through what he went through while they were doing it. It was mid-process, and then that shit happened. It must, you know what I mean? So for me, I can give him a pass. I can let him put his hand up and say I had a completely different idea for film, and then even if he is chucking in extra stuff and rewriting things and what weren't going to be an original, and he's seen what didn't work and he's wanting to change things that didn't work, I can give him a pass for it. For me, I can let this one go, but if they start doing it with other films, I'm just not going to be interested in the slightest.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Elliott, what about you?
No, I'm in complete agreement with you two. I think that it's good as a one-off, as a what if, but I wouldn't want this to be every film in every fandom all the time.
Nice.
All right. Shall we move on to topic 2?
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that.
I just liked Kyle's. Nice.
I think it's the first thing we've all agreed on. It's your best and worst of 2020.
Ooh.
I'll be honest, I've not actually come up with a worst example.
Have you not? See, I struggle, but I managed to come up with one.
I couldn't really, because the thing is, if there's a show that I'm not really bothered about, I just won't watch it, or I'll watch a trailer for it and then.
Okay, but is there anything that you felt disappointed in? I mean, my worst is more something that I was really looking forward to that I was disappointed in, rather than something that I hated.
I don't know, because really? I had one example, but then I went back the other day and watched it all the way again, and I actually really liked it the second running through, but I think it's because it's not what I expected in the first run through, so I don't know if that's a bit of a cheap answer.
No, I think.
But I can say it. So it was The Witcher. So the first time I watched The Witcher, I wasn't that excited about it. I thought the whole pacing and the whole thing with the alternative timelines just didn't make any sense to me. I'd not read the books. I played Witcher 3. So I'd not played any of the first 2 games. So I didn't really know what were happening. Whereas Westworld, when they did the alternative timelines, they did it really well. They didn't make it obvious, but at the same time, there was always that mystery there. So you could sort of delve into it. Whereas The Witcher, I was just like, well, what's happening here? This is not making any sense whatsoever. But now knowing that it were alternative timelines, I went back and watched it again the other day, and I really enjoyed it, actually. Just because I knew what were happening, I knew what timeline were which. So that would probably be my own example.
Mine was The Witcher as well, although I come from it from having read some of the books beforehand, and I still think it was one of the most disappointing shows that I watched of 2020.
See, I've heard that as well, because there's Chris that I work with. He's read all books and he's a big fan of The Witcher. I quite enjoyed it on my first run through. He hated it, same as you. Like he found it really disappointing. He expected more. Whereas I really enjoyed it on my first run through. Like the timeline stuff. Yeah, it took me an episode or two to get into and figure that out, but I thought it was a decent watch. It wasn't what what I'm trying to get my word out. It wasn't what they actually put out. Like, well, like we're going to be the Game of Thrones replacement. It's not to that kind of level, but we're still an entertaining watch and nowhere near my bottom of 2020. So yeah, that's quite surprising that both of you were ready to put it there at bottom.
I think it's just the most disappointing thing.
I wasn't going to put it there at all because, like I say, the only reason that's the only one I could think of. It wasn't like, because the thing is, before we even came up with this article, I'd watched it, give it a second run through, just because I wanted to watch it again, because I knew the second season's coming out next year. So that's my only example. I won't consider it as my worst because, like I say, for me, with TV shows and films, if I'm not bothered about it anyway, I just wait and watch it. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think that would be your worst. That surprised me because I'll be honest, I thought Mandalorian were your worst.
I was going to say, I bet you thought that Mandalorian would fall into our bottom category, and you have to remember that Mandalorian is really good. It's not amazing.
Somebody to go. There's still somebody to speak, so Pickers has still got his worst to fire away.
My worst, what, Mandalorian? I'm only joking. I'm not trying to get that as a rise at you. Like Elliott's saying, it's not that Mandalorian were a bad TV show. It's pretty decent. It's a good watch. It's enjoyable. It just wasn't up to the standard that you were saying it was, in my opinion.
Interesting. You'll be surprised by my best TV show then, to be honest, based on that. So my best for this year was Better Call Saul season 5.
Really?
Yeah.
I still have not started watching Better Call Saul. I watched the first episode at first season.
So this is so I've loved Breaking Bad, but this show surpassed it. And I know that's quite a big thing to say, but it has, especially season 5, the way they've left it on the cliffhanger. I think they're only going to do one more season, which is going to be season 6, and then it's going to lead on to Breaking Bad. But yeah, I can't wait for next season. It's far up there. I was thinking all these different shows as well, like Westworld season 3. And as much as I really did enjoy that, it just wasn't up there at the same level as Breaking Bad, and I say with Mandalorian and Stranger Things as well. You know, they're all great, but still not up there.
Pickers, can we ask what your worst is? Because I think that my best and your best will be the same.
So my worst was definitely something that I regret watching. It's Space Force on Netflix. Steve Carell.
I do watch a couple of episodes of that. It wasn't very funny.
It was terrible. it was just ridiculous with the amount of like talent that they got involved with. I didn't get excited, but I did get my hopes up a little bit for it, and I started watching it. It was not what I thought it was going to be. None of the jokes landed. It was just terrible. And I know it's been panned by so many reviewers and so many critics, but it's still getting a second season, so I'll definitely not be watching that.
Can I just mention one thing that I actually watched a trailer for that and thought this is going to be shit, so I've not watched it.
See, I try keeping away from trailers and stuff. I saw who were in it. I saw John Malkovich were in there and Steve Carell, and I jumped at it. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be good. And then stayed away from it. Got launched on Netflix and thought, bang. 2 episodes in, thought, well, I need to watch the third, but it must get better. It must get better. And I've got to sadly say I did watch all 10 episodes. I'm a bit ashamed of myself.
Interesting. Elliott, what were your best TV show then in 2020?
I think it was something that I wasn't really looking forward to it. Well, it wasn't that I wasn't looking forward to a second season. It was that I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, and it was The Boys too. I looked forward to every episode when that came out.
So that were mine as well. I did mine a different way around to you, so I didn't watch it weekly. I left mine until it completely finished and ignored Kyle for 10 weeks until so I didn't get any spoilers, and then watched it all in a binge and absolutely loved it. But yeah, I chose that one as my number one 2020.
I'll be honest, that was up there in my list. A TV show. There were quite a few for 2020 really with TV shows, but yeah, because Better Call Saul just picked it for me. But The Boys, I'm really looking forward to season 3. So
I'm really surprised you wouldn't pick Mandalorian.
It's up there, like I say, but it's just not for me. Because The Mandalorian, I knew what to expect going into it. I didn't expect it to be.
You defended it so passionately every week.
That's because I'm a Star Wars fan. So, like I say, it's up there. It's in my top 5 TV shows of 2020. But just for when you really watch a TV show, like same with with Breaking Bad or Ray Donovan, you're watching it for like the drama aspect to it and all the for the acting. But for something that it's because thing is with Mandalorian and Star Wars, it's there's elements of acting in it as well, in good acting, but it's about special effects and action and all that. Whereas with Better Call Saul, it's just literally just people just talking to each other. There's a little bit of action in there, but you're watching it for the plot and for these characters. And since the first season, going all the way up to the 5th, it's just got better and better. Like I didn't think after season 3 I thought it might drop off, but as a show that is, in fact, a good example is when you mentioned about a couple of podcasts away about Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like Cheers, but I prefer Frasier. And even though that show's a spin-off, it's like that at the minute for me with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Like Cheers,
Really?
like same way I like Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul's just hit its stride. It's doing something where you sort of expect, or it needs to introduce all these characters and be a prequel to Breaking Bad, but it's not. It's doing its own thing without having to rely on that too much, and that's what I really like about it.
See, that's the thing that I'm always worried about with prequels, is that there's only so far that they can go with them, and then kind of have to start doing things that they're kind of written into a corner, if you get me.
I think Vince Gilligan's is very smart in the way he's going to be writing. I don't think this is going to end where it's going to be, and look over there, we can see Walter White and his little family car, and that's how it's going to end. He's going to just end it, and then you can just imagine bits happening in between, and then you've got Breaking Bad. He's not going to lead into it. He's done that anyway with El Camino. The film that about Jesse, and even that didn't have to rely. You'd got the scene between Walter and Jesse at the end. Didn't need to be in it, that scene, but it was good, and I like that film as well.
Really?
Well, you don't like El Camino?
No. But you got to think I'm not a massive fan of Breaking Bad either.
Oh, fair enough.
I had to force myself through the last season.
I think the thing is, the problem with last season is they made a mistake breaking up into 2 parts. They really did, and having that gap in between. They should have just released it all as one lump sum, and then I think it would have been a lot easier to watch. But the first half at 5th season was a bit hit and miss.
I'm going to say, because I watched it all together because it took me 3 times to watch Breaking Bad from beginning to end.
It'd be interesting if you watch Better Call Saul to see what you think about it. Like I say,
well, that's what's put me off Breaking Call Saul, is the fact that I just went so much against the grain on Breaking Bad.
I can tell you now, it's got characters that make appearance from Breaking Bad, but it's not a TV show that relies on just being a prequel to that. It's doing its own separate thing. Like I say, what it's doing now is you could watch Better Call Saul without ever watching Breaking Bad and still find it a really good show. It's just that it's a spin-off. So it's keeping those existing viewers going over, but also, someone like yourself that doesn't like Breaking Bad, or I don't know if you ever watched Breaking Bad, Elliott, but I'd probably recommend Better Call Saul over that.
Yeah. Pickers, are you more interested now that you've heard about Kyle's explanation of Better Call Saul to watch it?
A little bit, yeah, but to be fair, I've had so many recommendations about Breaking Bad, and it just took me so long, and I had to grind through it. It really wasn't a good experience for me. Like twice, I started watching it from the beginning, and then fell out of it round about halfway through season 3, season 4. And then the last time when I forced myself to watch it all the way to end, it nearly killed me. I've got to say. I just pushed and pushed and pushed, and I did not enjoy one bit of it. I just think it's in my opinion, a very overrated TV show.
I'm gonna say I'm a little bit interested to go and watch Better Call Saul because I've never seen Better Call Saul. But after Kyle's explanation, I am interested in seeing if I would be interested in watching that.
A little bit, but again, his explanation on the fact that he stands on his own, so a bit like Frasier and Cheers, that does make me a little bit. Well, maybe I'll enjoy it, but I've just been so put off with Breaking Bad that I don't know if I could. I don't know. It depends if there's all else. It depends if there's all else that I'm interested in watching, or all else that like Vikings is coming out, so I'll probably watch that, and then there'll probably be something else coming out. So whether or not I'll get around to it, I do not know. It's not making any promises.
We got a film in 2020. So I've actually got two.
I didn't know. I didn't look at that.
I didn't really watch any films, I don't think, that weren't on Netflix or Amazon.
I watched a fair few films, but none that I can come up with off the top of my head.
Well, for me, I thought we were doing films, so I was really struggling to think up one for that I'd watched in 2020, and there's quite a few. The only one that came to mind were 1917. That I've watched. Go on.
I'll wait to see if you like it or not. This is a bit exciting for me.
Oh no, like I said 1917 is one of me. Well, like I said, I've got two examples. I've got an example of a film that I started watching in 2020, but then never got round to, and then I've gone back and watched it again today, and that's one of my favorite films that got released in 2020. But to think of a film that got released in 2020 that beats this one out, the only one I can think of is 1917, just because of the way it's been shot. It's story-wise, it's good. It's not great, but I like it just for everything it's done in terms of the whole scenes were set in one shot, just the whole technical aspect of it.
I'll agree with you so far on that. The way they got shot was beautiful, and it had a very good feel to it, just following them step by step, and all being a single shot. But the acting and the story just was not good.
Well, my second one, which is and I can't believe it got snubbed at the Oscars, which is the one that I started watching in 2020, didn't get around to watching it all the way through, and then I've gone back and watched it again today. Is Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler.
Oh mate, such a good film.
It is by far the best film of 2020. And I don't understand why it got snubbed at Oscars, and I can understand why Adam. Well, yeah, but it's just really unfair to him, and I can understand why he came out in that speech that he did at the other award ceremony. Snubbing the Oscars, because I mean, it's just up there, and I've always said this all along that Adam Sandler's a great actor. He were in Punch Drunk Love, Funny People, Reign Over Me, one of my favourite films with him, and now this. He can be a serious actor.
When it comes to serious dramatic films, it's 4 for 4 for me. All 4 of them are really good watches.
I'd even say 5 because I watched that new Whiskey Stories with him and Dustin Hoffman and Ben Stiller, which is a bit of it's like a black comedy. But
I'm going to say that's what I'd class that as. I won't class it as on same kind of dramatic level.
But if you're watching that film for it to be a drama, then I'd say it's 5 for 5 with that. But it just goes to show that he can act when he wants to. I think people have just got this impression about him that he just does crap films, but The thing is, Netflix are paying him to do all these.
I'm gonna say he can't blame people. To be fair, when it comes to Adam Sandler, you've got to blame him. The voice that have you watched the really latest film that is released, the Halloween film? I forgot what name it is.
Like a murder mystery one, or is it?
No, not the murder mystery. The Who Be Halloween or Who Be Summer, and it is absolutely terrible. It's on Netflix. It's worth a watch, but yeah, it's the same voice that he's been doing for the past 30 years.
So it's interesting though. Do you think if Nick Cage brought out a really Oscar-nominated worthy film, that he'd get snubbed because of all the films that he's done in the past? Because I don't think he would personally.
I don't think he would, but you gotta think Nick Cage has also had some greats in with all his films. Yeah, like it's been up there on pinnacle for pretty much every genre he's been in.
But and I think it's a little bit more understandable that Nick Cage did films for the money because he was in debt, whereas Adam Sandler just took the money and went on holiday. I think
well, he filmed
money, yeah, but he's been paid millions, and he's thought, you know what, I'm not really going to put much effort into a film here and get paid millions for it, but then go on to these nice exotic locations and film it because I can.
I was going to say, he openly said that, like, I filmed these films and the reason why we're doing them like we're doing them is because I get to take my family and that's a free holiday here.
But that's why I think that Nick Cage would get a better reception at the Oscars than Adam Sandler, is that Adam Sandler probably doesn't look like he respects the craft as much as Nick Cage.
Well, as opposed to Nick Cage just taking films just to pay off a tax.
Yeah, but that's more understandable than just going on holiday, isn't it?
Not really though, is it?
It is for me.
I've got to say,
if you turn around to me and said, "I've just done this because I get an holiday out of it," or "I've done this because I really need to,"
I don't think he should get snubbed for it because I mean, I think given a chance, quite a lot of actors and actresses would.
Yeah. I mean, the question wasn't does he deserve to get snubbed? I don't think he deserves to get snubbed. I just think that I can understand how he gets snubbed because of what he said in the past and what he's done in the past, rather than.
Well, it was getting snubbed way before this whole everything with Netflix, because I think it was, the films that we mentioned, like Punch Drunk Love, Reign Over Me, were films that on the back of him like Big Daddy and things like that, which were, even though they were comedies, they were sort of like family friendly type comedy things. Not in the same way that they're just purposely stupid, like what he's doing with Netflix a minute. He's not putting no effort into him. He made it where people can watch Big Daddy and enjoy it. Get around it.